And what's the story behind the curry project?
I'm a late parent, so for me, I've been single for a long time, but whether be it single or now as a mother, the problem is always the same. The problem being, what's for dinner? What should I cook next? What should my next meal be? So I realized that a woman is juggling so many things. And another big trigger for me was, okay, my baby is now on milk, but when I am traveling, there's no way that I'm going to be able to give her healthy food. Curry project needs to be very personalized, but also multi-purpose.
So you're saying that you can have a good shelf life for a product like this without preservative, and that's possible out of innovation.
Yes.
Next time my wife is asking me to cook, I'm going to use one of these and make sure that she calls me a good cook.
This is also a cheat code, yes.
Of course. Hey everyone, welcome back to How We Started and a brand new episode. In today's episode, we are going to meet Nithya Subbaraj, the founder of the Curry Project. The Curry Project is all about bringing healthy and convenient meals on your table. And we're going to take away very important business lessons today. The first one being, how is that you're going to find a niche if you have to find a business idea? How is that you're going to journal your ideas on the dream board and take an action towards it? And how is that you're going to use customer feedback to rapidly innovate so that you can make sure that you progress than to stall? And again, if you want to find more such episodes and if you find value, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump into our episode today. Hey Nithya, welcome to How We Started.
Hi, thank you so much.
We're so happy to have you here with us.
Likewise.
Okay, so let's jump into the show directly. You're on a mission to make healthy food more accessible to our clients in the market. But it's not the first time somebody came out with a mission like this.
Yeah.
What is a gap that you have seen in the market that needs to be filled? And what's the story behind the Curry Project, your brainchild?
Very big question. I'm trying to make it as short and crisp as possible. So how it started for me is I recently gave birth to a baby and I was on maternity leave. And I'm a late parent. So for me, I've been single for a long time, but whether be it single or now as a mother, the problem is always the same, right? The problem being, what's for dinner? What should I cook next? What should my next meal be? So when I was at home and the child was needed to be taken care of, so I realized that a woman is juggling so many things. And it's not just restricted to women. Anybody in today's world, we are all running the rat race and we don't have time to make fresh food, but we're always craving that, oh, I wish I get this to eat, I get that to eat. But the entire effort to make that, it's either time or money, right? If it's time, that means you have to make it by yourself.
Right.
And then if it's money, you'll have to order it from outside. And if you are buying it from outside, not necessarily that it's tasty. And especially when you're not in your home country and you've moved, the cravings become higher. So for me, it was more like, where will I get the same taste of my mom's cooking? Where will I get comfort food? Because when I go outside and eat or even get the tiffin services or buy food from the grocery store, it's not necessarily healthy. It has so much of sugar in it, so much of fat. And I'm not sure if I'm eating healthy. So that was the entire brainchild. And another big trigger for me was, okay, my baby is now on milk. She's having bottled milk and then slowly she'll start eating all the foods that we will eat. But when I am traveling, there's no way that I'm going to be able to give her healthy food. So that was the brainchild behind my flagship product, which is instant lentil soup powder. So it's a multi-purpose product. So I did a lot of trials at home. There is a lot of lentil soups available in the market, but all the ones that you get at the supermarket, the powdered ones, they are all full of salt. So I went and did a lot of trials at home, tried to do whether I should have liquid, like a concentrated lentil soup and then give it to people. You add water and bring it to a boil, or you just make a powder. So finally, the entire result of of all those trials is my lentil soup powder, which became a I wouldn't say like a super duper hit, but it was a great start and the first event that I went to and I showcased my product. So that was the entire trigger for why Curry Project is.
Wow, that's super interesting. I do know that even though you started off with your powdered lentil soup,
Yeah.
that's not where you're still there. You've kind of multiplied the kind of arena for a spectrum of products you have. So I'm sure that didn't happen overnight. And you'd have also had your customer come in giving you feedback in terms of like, it would have been nice if you expand your product range to maybe a granola bar or something else. So talk to us about how did you actually get the feedback in the first few months from your customers and how did that translate into you increasing your product range?
Yeah. So the first time I actually made the soup, lentil soup, and sold it at the event, it had salt in it. And I used to give samples, like give really small shots of lentil soup, which is prepared to customers who are trying to buy it, because I realized that everyone wants to sample what they buy. So when they sampled and like many of them would say, oh, this salt is less, salt is more, salt is less. Then I realized that, okay, this is a good feedback. So then I let it be and I realized that every customer has a personalized requirement, right? That's when I introduced the whole fact that Curry Project needs to be very personalized, but also multi-purpose. So if you look at the lentil soup, you just can have it as is.
Yeah.
So it's good for a lazy day when you don't want to cook, you just want to eat and make do with your meal. You just have it with bread or a salad, and you it's very simple to make. You have to just add water and bring it to a slow boil, and you are cooking it fresh. So for people who are having frozen foods and they don't want to eat something which has been prepared earlier, so then for them this is a good thing because you're making it fresh. Right. And since it's in powder form, it's dehydrated and it lasts long. So it still has all the nutrition packed in it. And if you are in the mood to experiment and get creative, you can add more protein into it.
Nice.
So you can add your chicken, boiled veggies and load it up. Right. But this gives you a nice base. And if you are, say, I want to make it a meal with rice and I want to have like a dal fry or a sambar, you can use it with that as well. So you can add your veggies, boil it with some tamarind water, and your sambar is ready. So I've cut down the time. You usually will take around 1 hour minimum to cook lentils. But with my soup, you take 8 to 10 minutes. So that's cutting down 50 minutes of your time. And it gets ready by the time you just refresh and come back from work.
Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting. I know the customer feedback sometimes is good. Have you faced any out of the world feedback to say that, maybe I should try it, but not now, because right now it might not be either affordable or realistic? Have you had any kind of feedback for that?
Yeah.
And how did you kind of, articulate it or like make it into a plan for future?
Yeah. So that's a great question. You're actually tapping on what all things I did in my first phase of incubation. So I realized that Canada is a place where a lot of cultures come together and people need very specific requirements. Like even if you look at coffee, people want decaf, they want 1 spoon of creamer. I mean, I'm not a coffee person, but you get what I mean. Like everyone needs like 1,000 variations of the same coffee. So then I realized that why not do that for food? Because everyone has different choice. So there was this customer who came back and said, initially my lentil soup was priced for 4 portions. Like it could be for a family of 4. Then for a family of 4, the pricing was as such. It was all, my pricing is very affordable, and it used to be $8 before. And you could make like 4 cups of soup. And then I realized that, oh, you can't cater to this population because not everybody requires to make soup for 4 people.
Right.
So then now I make single serves. So that's the innovation I came up with. I made my pack smaller and I loaded up all my toppings within it. So I have toppings of, say, fried onions and curry leaves. So I also used to give them chili flakes. Then I realized that not everyone wants spice.
Right.
So you add your spice. I'm giving you something which is without salt, right? So now it's a single serve which you can use whenever you want, and it lasts for 6 months. You can use it anytime in the next 6 months. So it's just like a handy food available, but it does not have any preservatives of any sort. And if you look at in the market, people say that there's no preservatives, but what they actually mean is it's hidden in some other format, but it's just probably loaded as some compound or some sugar. But none of my products had even any hidden preservatives. So that's something where I have continuously taken customer feedback and come up with something which is actually usable in the market.
Okay. So you're saying that you can have a good shelf life for a product like this without preservative, and that's possible out of innovation.
Yes, yes. So to keep food safe, you need to remove the moisture content in it. So that's exactly what dehydration does. It removes the water content in whatever you have. So you completely dehydrate the lentils and then I powder it. And it's not a wet powder, it's a completely dry powder. And even the spices I mix in it, they're very minimal spices because only the good spices are added. I don't have chili in it. I don't have anything which is heat to the system. So it's just about good spices like ginger, garlic, cumin, turmeric, and curry leaves, good herbs which everyone needs in their daily nutrition. And this is also a way to introduce all the good spices to the American palate, right? No one knows that there are healthy ways of healing the body.
Right.
So using a lot of ginger and turmeric is very to strong help because they're super anti-inflammatory.
Absolutely. I love it. I love your mission of getting all the age-old, Asian spices to West, that they can also realize how good it is for the system. So excellent. Okay, so brand building is very, very crucial, especially when you start, and it's an ongoing business. You have to make sure you come up with new strategies to build your brand.
Yeah.
In Canadian market, it's one step further, being more difficult because Canadians, I've seen, are very loyal to their products.
Yeah.
So how do you plan on making the Curry Project and the products a household name? And how are you going to make it stick to the consumers?
Yeah. So as I said initially that I don't want to focus on profits first. For me, it's the brand building, which is more important. And I want the brand to stand for trust, affordability, instant comfort food, and extremely high levels of nutrition, which includes high protein based. So when my customers actually give me a chance for them to sample it, this the first thing I always try to assess, like what kind of products are they looking for. Like some people are just looking for snacks, some people are just looking for soups, some people directly tell me on the face, I'm not a soup person, and they don't even sample it.
Right.
So that's the reason I actually started other things apart from soup. So if you will see, the Curry Project is always going to be an ever evolving business because I've added meal boxes now. So you would have heard of fresh idlis and chutney sambar, but have you heard of frozen idli and sambar?
Never.
Yeah. So in winter, when you want to eat idlis, right, and you don't want to drive to the nearest Indian, and you want to eat healthy and safe and something which is super gut friendly, right? Because idli is has so much of probiotics in it.
Right.
You can just open the Curry Project's frozen idli, steam it for 7 minutes, and it's ready. It's just soft and fluffy, just the way your mom would make it at home. And I also give frozen sambar, which you can keep for 2 months. You can just heat that, boil it back, and then have it.
Oh, love it. Is it already there on the shelves today?
It's not on the shelves, but it's on my website for sale. I haven't got that order. So idli is something which non-Indians also like to try because it's so light on the stomach, especially for seniors. So one thing I've realized from the different events that I've done a lot of vendor market events, and right now my source of getting customers is through events. I do one-day events, and I also went to the recent farmers market in Aldershot. So these are the only ways I get it now. I haven't had the time to do aggressive marketing, which is what you're trying to get me there, right, to that topic. So brand building comes when you really focus most of your investment into marketing and building the brand.
Right.
But I'm focusing on building my product, right? Trying to understand my customer. And I am a solo woman entrepreneur. So doing everything myself. So while I have a day job, so I'm right now focusing on adding products to the shelf first, then take the shelf to the market.
Excellent. No, I think that's a brilliant area that I've not heard of.
Yeah.
And it's a real gap that you're trying to address. And we wish you luck. Do you believe, now that I've heard that you're trying to, sell your products majorly online and also you're growing your customer base very organically?
Yeah.
Do you believe that all these products that are there in the stores on the shelves, is that somewhere that you want to go in the future? Are you trying to, tie up with any retailers to put your products on their shelves? Or are you going to try to keep it online, knowing the new gen is all about online buying?
I have to do both. But with ideally, I would like to keep in a Walmart or a Metro, for example, but they also have their kitchens and they also have their products there. But to get an entry into a big retailer, you need to have a minimum commitment of what you will need to deliver. I'm not there yet. So maybe after a few years when I have consistent orders and I am able to bulk up my volumes, because right now it's just me doing it. I go to the commercial kitchen, and mind you, none of these products are made at home because as per Ontario regulations, you cannot sell something which is home based. Okay. So you have to go to the commercial kitchen. So I work with one of the cloud kitchens. I go there and I make my products I make batches, and it is all small batch. So that's another USP. So it is small batch, handcrafted, and it is fresh. And it is completely safe and healthy without preservatives. So once you scale up, that USP should not go, right? But because as a food provider, if you scale up, your taste and quality can be impacted.
Right.
So I'd like to keep it. That's why I'd like to make every single portion of the food I make. And I'd rather freeze it, flash freeze it, and give it to you to make sure that the nutrition is there. I haven't heard of anyone flash freezing Asian food, right? Because flash freezing is a concept which makes sure that your nutrition is locked right at the time of cooking. And then you can keep it up to a year and you can take it out and it'll be as fresh as ever.
And the nutritious content is locked.
Yes, that is called flash freezing because you immediately freeze it as soon as you cook it.
Okay.
Because once you let it out in the open to cool it to normal temperature, then you're giving a lot of space for bacteria to sit on the food and, let it grow. But when you flash freeze it, all of the nutrition is locked right at the time. So when you go to the store and if you're a non-vegetarian, you would see a lot of fish that you buy, it's always flash frozen. Because they pick it up from the sea, immediately flash freeze it, and it stays up to a year. So I want to do that with my lentil-based products and cater to all the vegan and vegetarian customers. So most of my products are vegan. But I do have a vegetarian soup, which is buttermilk soup. You need to add yogurt into it and then some water and bring it. So this is a big hit with non-Indians. There's a customer of mine who actually took 20 packs.
Wow.
And she came back after 2 weeks to take another 20 single serve packs because she was crazy of the tangy taste of the yogurt.
Right.
And you know what that buttermilk soup is actually called in India?
No.
It's curry pakoda.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't know.
Exactly. So I'll show you that one. So this is the curry pakoda packet. And if you are at home and your wife is not around or you just want to make your own meal, you just take this powder, you add 1 cup of yogurt to it, mix it, and then you add water to it, mix it just so that there are no lumps, and leave it there and stir it once in a while. It's ready in 10 minutes. And it also has the pakoda in it.
No way.
Yes, it has the pakoda in it, which is also dehydrated. So this was a big challenge for me because I used to make the fresh pakodas and sell it. So my customer, there was this lady who wrote me an email. Find a way to dehydrate your pakoda because it's deep fried. You get the oil smell after a while, right? So then what I did was I tried to make sure, like, call my mom and ask for all those nushkas, like how do you make it crisp, how does it stay longer, like how you get it back in your Indian bakeries, right? In South India, you have all the bakery pakodas which stay for 30 days. Then I realized, why am I doing all that? Because end of the day, you're still going to go back and soak it up in your curry.
Right.
I might as well dehydrate it because it becomes soft once you cook it for 8 to 10 minutes. So now I have soft pakodas which are already there in the mix. So this is like a great way to innovate and also make sure that curry pakoda taste is still the same as what you get back home in India.
And next time my wife is asking me to cook, I'm going to use one of these and make sure that she calls me a good cook.
Yeah. This is also a cheat code, yes.
Of course.
If you want to say that I made this at home.
What does success look to you? Is it growing your company in terms of the revenue or making sure that your brand sticks to your customers' mind, or whether you're expanding your product range? What does success look to you in the next 3 years?
Success to me is, of course, right now I'm investing a lot, and you're in a startup, you takes a while to get your break even. Within 3 years, I hope to completely, move on the other side of break even. But apart from that, I would really like to build a loyal customer base. And to say that I don't want to be restricted to a certain type of customers, right? Because I don't want customers who just love soup, or I don't want customers who just love crackers. I would want to be able to cater to everybody. And that is why I want to always be on the personalization game. So if I was on the other side of, right now I'm on the motherhood side, but even if I'm on the singlehood side, Curry Project should still be my nutrition partner, right? Whether I am a person who is working night shifts and I'm struggling to make sure that the stores are open when I go get food, and I don't want to waste my time or money going and buying grocery in the middle of the night and come back, I want to partner with that person also. So I want to be that nutrition friend of sorts. Like, if no one is there, Curry Project is there, right? And not there somewhere 500 miles away, but in your kitchen, in your fridge.
Right.
That's where I want to be. That's my aim. And everyone's problem statement is different, but I want to be the answer to everyone's problem statement.
Excellent. I love it. I love it. So now that I know a little bit about your products, what you're trying to do,
Yeah.
Who's Nithya? And tell us about yourself, your upbringing, and how that has kind of had an impact on who you are today and the Curry Project.
Okay. I think no one's asked me this question before, but to think of an answer, I think there's a great linkage between what Curry Project stands for and what I am as a person. Because my journey has been quite, I wouldn't say long, but very varied. I was born and brought up in South India, but I'm well traveled even within India. And my career was always my priority. I'm a HR consultant, and I have moved countries because of my career. I mean, that's a very surprising way to look at it. But other women would be like shocked to see that, oh, for a job, you're actually moving countries, you will completely change your routes. But I have done that because I'm very passionate about anything I do. I want to give my 100%. So I've worked in Southeast Asia. Then from there, I moved to the Middle East. And from the Middle East, I moved back to India. And now I'm in Canada. So I understanding people's requirements and delivering to what they need has been something as part of my career, because I'm a HR consultant, right? And HR consulting is a complicated thing. So you don't have anything in place. as a scope of work. You have to go speak to a client and then try to build up scope of work and then try to get money from them for whatever you want to deliver basis that scope of work. So understanding people from different walks of life is very important. But that understanding has helped me, I think, to set up something like Curry Project, because I've also done some startup boot camps as part of one of my previous jobs. So we were trained while I was in SAP, where SAP has an entrepreneurship venture where you can build your own product within the company. So they gave us a lot of boot camp around how to build a startup. But they always kept saying you should have a niche. You have a niche, you focus on the niche. So I started with that niche, saying that soup will be my niche. But when I went to all the vendor markets and then understanding the market scene here, I realized that half of them don't like soup. So then what do I do, right? I can't just keep going and knocking everyone at the door and asking if you like soup. So then I give what they want. So everyone wants variety. They want good health, but they also don't want boredom. So that's the entire point of the Curry Project. And I believe that my personal journey has helped me understand this.
Excellent. So it's very interesting to see how your upbringing and your transferable skills that you've learned over a period of time in your career has helped you. But the most important takeaway that I think the viewers should take is like creating your niche and then working on it so that it addresses the problem in market. So thank you for that takeaway.
Yeah.
AI, I'm sure you're hearing that a lot nowadays.
Yeah.
How are you planning to use AI and data analytics with AI to help the Curry Project advance forward?
I actually started using AI for my social media marketing. I used for 2 months, where they will take all the information about the Curry Project and put the different products and all the pictures, and they would start posting stories on the different social media platforms. But I don't know, maybe it works for others. For me, it really didn't work because once you're a startup, you're doing so many different things and you don't want an AI generated image just because you don't have an image, right? I don't have a full-fledged marketing department or some videographer who can get pictures and videos for me, but I don't want to use any AI generated images too. So I discontinued the service and I realized that the kind of person I am, I really want every image, every even hashtag to be very relatable and not very generic. So I'd rather put one post in a month instead of just having the brand recall through AI every day of the month. So that's the decision I have taken, and I want to focus on that. But I will definitely use it for data analytics, but not right now. I will probably start in Jan. Like this whole year is my year one. I started in Jan this year. I did my sampling last November.
Okay.
At the first vendor market event. So I participate in vendor market events in different cities. I've done Mississauga, I've done Oakville, I've done Milton, Burlington, Hamilton. Hamilton was the first one I started. So I made $60 in my first event.
That's good.
Yeah, and it was like like the salary, the payday wasn't making me so happy. Those $60 actually made me so happy that there is a potential. So I will continue going. I've even gone to the other side of the lakeshore, which is Ajax and Oshawa. So hopefully I'll be able to expand. But right now, I think my priority is to get support because I have too many things on my plate. So I need help to. So I outsource some of my marketing now remotely. Someone from Asia does it. And hopefully we will work together to make more impactful media, savvy posts and reels.
I was interested in asking you about the support that you received from the Government of Canada from various aspects. I've heard in my previous podcast with food business owners that there's been grants that the Government of Canada provides for food business and women in business. So have you kind of like tapped on that network to help you grow?
Honestly, I haven't tapped it yet. As I said, I've been focusing on finding out what ticks with the customer in terms of products. But my focus henceforth is to build a network. At my commercial kitchen where I go, I interact and speak with a lot of fellow cooks and chefs who may also into food business. So they give me a lot of tips, but I haven't asked them about grants yet. But the Halton, there's a Halton Business Center which provides a lot of free webinars, and they also provide paid consulting to guide you through it. I haven't explored it.
Okay.
I will.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I think we are got very good information from you. One of the things that the viewers would like to know, especially all those folks that are trying to start something but have been putting that envision on the vision board but yet to take that first step. What is a piece of advice as a woman entrepreneur that you would like to give for anybody that's thinking about something and is afraid to take that first step?
Great question, because I think every person who cooks has this plan. Like if I had a little more time, I would do this on my own. I would start off on my own. And I've thought about this for quite a few years, and I don't know what kind of courage or energy that came by last year. So I started off to find my niche. Maybe the fact that I was on maternity leave for a long time is the first time I was taking a long break. Otherwise, in my entire 18 plus years of working, I'm not taken more than 2 weeks of break away from work. So this whole maternity leave gave me a lot of time to introspect and wonder as to what am I doing with my life, and think through what gives me the joy and passion without expectation of a pay. So that's where this idea came, and then I worked on the idea because I had the time. But for someone who is starting off, I think they should start off. Don't put a full stop, say that, oh, when I have time, I'll do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Even if it's half an hour a week, do it. Because that 30 minutes a week, trust me, is 26 hours in 52 weeks, right?
Right.
And you can achieve so much in 26 hours. And it's unbelievable because in November this year, I'm going to be finishing a year. But from where I came to where I am today, I think in terms of the levels of confidence and even general flow, as they say, right? When you're doing something, you're completely absorbed in it and it gives you superb joy. That I have discovered that in this last 1 year. So that's something which should motivate anybody who's doing anything. So all the best to anyone who is starting off.
Excellent. Progress over perfection.
Yes.
And if you have the luxury, take a break for 3 months and then think about what you want to do.
Yeah.
Or at least 3 weeks.
I wouldn't say take a break or go for a maternity leave, but I'm saying even if it is a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
One Saturday in a month, if you focus on putting like start storyboarding your idea. But if you do that, you will keep improvising it. Like if you come to my house, I have a board every day. Like I watch a recipe, I watch a YouTube video. I'm like, okay, I can do this for curry project. I just go note it down.
Journaling.
I just journal the name of the recipe. And then when I have time or just before sleeping, if I'm not sleepy for 10 minutes, I start Googling the recipe. And then I try to think how I can add curry-based flavor to that recipe. So my whole idea is to add good spices to any recipe. So that's my, I don't know, it's become like my pet peeve now.
Love it. Awesome. Okay, it's been an excellent time talking to you. And as we wrap up the show today,
Yeah.
I want you to let our viewers know if they want to find the Curry Project and the products, where can they find you, and how is that they can easily access and order from you?
Yeah, so I do have a website. It's called www.thecurryproject.ca. And I also have an Instagram handle. You can look me at the.curry.project. So that's the.curry.project.
Awesome.
So all the updates will be on the Instagram. My website may not be updated in real time because it takes time to put in the products, but my Instagram is definitely updated.
Awesome. Viewers, hope you noted it down. not just the business lessons from today. Make sure that you try out those delicious recipes from the Curry Project and let us know what your feedback is in the comments below. And as always, in the future, if you like such episodes, like, share, and subscribe. And let us know what kind of questions you might have for our future food runners and entrepreneurs, so we can ask that on your behalf and you have the answers for that dream that you've been thinking and wanting to go from 0 to 1. And as always, keep making sure that you work on your dream project, and we would love to thank your time and your valuable inputs that you provided today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Praveen. It's been a pleasure, and thank you, Gayatri, too. And I really look forward to this podcast also growing really well, and all the best to all of you.